So if the mayor sits down, because he said he might listen to a couple speakers, the first seat with the black stripes, that's his seat.
Our program will begin in just a moment. We ask you to move on in, plenty of seats. Come on in. Good afternoon. My name is Bob Schultz, and I'd like to welcome you on behalf of Downtown Indy Inc. staff to the 22 State of Downtown and the Downtown Indy Inc. annual meeting presented by J.P. Morgan Chase and Company. It's an exciting time for downtown, and we're going to hear a lot of reasons why that statement is true. One of the exciting opportunities is gathering in this space, and I don't believe we're on Zoom, which is kind of refreshing. So thank you for those who are coming here. We'll also be making this available on YouTube immediately following, a little bit later this afternoon, for those who want to pass it around the office, so to speak. I'd especially want to thank James Johnson and the staff of the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra and Hilbert Circle Theater for hosting us today. As we kick off today's meeting, I'm kind of singing to the choir. And we know that, and what a beautiful concert hall to have music and art as a way to kick off our meeting. And the best way to do that is to remind ourselves what we love about downtown, to remind ourselves of this rhapsody that makes downtown such a special place to be. For some of us, we've felt it and have seen it every day these past 2 years. Others, we're just starting to re-engage. But as we do re-engage, let's remind ourselves what we love about downtown. Let's take a look.
Downtown Indy, my first love, my circle city. The ebbs, the flows, the highs, the lows, the fast, the slows. Where it stops, nobody knows. Our past, our future, our people, our pride. All of the times we laughed so hard we cried. We take care of business. We take care of each other. We explore together, break bread together. Lots of bread, lots of love. Under the radar and over the top. The after-work drinks and the lunchtime walks. The passion, the work, the hustle, the grind. The city, the lights, and nothing but time. Here's to the places we'll miss, to the spots we'll discover, to where I had my first kiss, to where I'll soon have another. I guess I'd forgotten we'd gotten off track. I didn't know how much I missed you, but it's all coming back.
Can I have an amen? It's all coming back. And we are here to celebrate that it is all coming back, so on with the program. It is my pleasure to turn this stage over to the chair of the Downtown Indy Inc. Board of Directors. Please welcome Mr. Bill Brown. Bill?
Thank you, Bob. And first of all, let me echo our thanks to James Johnson and the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra for hosting us this afternoon. It's such a wonderful venue to have this event in. It is now my pleasure to call the annual meeting of Downtown Indy Inc. To order. Special thanks to our top tier members, also called Downtown Indy trustees, and whose commitment to the work of Downtown Indy Inc. is so appreciated. Please join me in thanking our trustee members, AES Indiana, Eli Lilly, and the Indiana Star. Please thank them. We also wish to thank some key members, especially our presenting sponsor, J.P. Morgan Chase, whose sponsorship support today has made this event possible. So let's show them support as well. J.P. Morgan Chase, thank you. It is indeed an honor to serve as the chair of the board of directors for Downtown Indy Inc. The board is a talented, committed, and trusted group of professionals with downtown's best interests in mind. Just an hour ago, before the governing board of directors and our downtown marketing board, we held a joint meeting where new members were elected as we embark on another year leading and serving. We thank all of our members and our newly elected members and veterans as well to please stand and be recognized. So if any members would please stand from the DII board, please. Thank you all. Thank you for your service. And now I'd like to invite our president and CEO, Sherry Seiwer, to join me on stage. Sherry? All right. Huh?
Are we sharing a mic?
Yes.
All right.
As many of you know by now, after 10 years of solid service with Downtown Indy, Sherry is stepping down from her role as president and CEO of the organization. This is something that Sherry has been considering for some time, but wanted to make sure she left the organization at an appropriate time. Sherry has led us through some very challenging times these past few years, we all know, and she's helped us, I feel like, really get to the other side of all of this. Although we have always work to do, she leaves downtown Indy in a very good place, giving us a platform to move forward with new leadership. Sherry, we want to thank you for your leadership and offer our very best wishes to you as you seek the next chapter in your career. So if we could just, a round of applause for Sherry, and we have more opportunity to thank her again in a moment here. Just for some additional information, the board is currently forming a search committee with the goal of filling Sherry's position in the next several months. Krista Skidmore has agreed to chair this effort for us, and thank you, Krista, for handling this for the board. In the meantime, Bob Schultz will be serving as our interim president and CEO. We are grateful and pleased that Bob is willing to take on this role. However, Bob will not be able to do this alone, and so both the staff and the board have pledged their support in months ahead to continue to move our downtown forward with Bob's leadership. Let me now turn the podium over to Sherry so she can offer her remarks. So, Sherry?
Thanks, Bill. And thank you all for coming. We have a delightful state of downtown that we're going to present to you and hopefully show you the optimistic future in front of you. Change is always bittersweet, but I will tell you, for me, it is more sweet than bitter. I leave at a good time when I think that downtown is in a position for growth, in an upward trajectory, and certainly didn't want to leave it during the pandemic, during our, in my opinion, our darkest hours. But I do want to take a moment. I promise I won't make this the Oscars. I do want to thank our board of directors of Downtown Indy Inc., our existing directors and our new. You have been a tremendous support, especially the executive committee, for the organization as well as myself. Also, IDMI, I've often said you are the fun board, no offense, Downtown Indy board, but it's the marketing board that really adds the energy to our organization. I also want to thank Downtown Indy staff. I am so incredibly proud of all that you have accomplished over the last 10 years, and I'm proud to say that I'm one of your colleagues. So thank you for your ongoing positions at Downtown Indy and everything that you've done for the organization as well as downtown. And then lastly, now my husband's not here, but I do want to thank him. I never do when I'm at the podium. And so I want to thank him for just always being willing to come to the events that we host, to offering a supportive ear on those long days when I get home. So thank you, honey. Somebody, if they see him on the street, tell him that. And then, this does come at a good time. When I think about downtown and the position that we're in, it's marked by the optimism, again, that you will hear. I can see in the number of employees that are coming back to the office. I can see it in the number of events that are getting booked downtown. I can see it in the growth in our current downtown residents. Just the occupancy percentages have gone sky high. So I think that we have a tremendous, our city is resilient, and I think we have a tremendous time in front of us. So onward and upward. Thank you all.
Stay here for a moment. Before Sherry leaves the stage, I wanted to give you a small token of our appreciation for your service. We commissioned an original painting from Indianapolis artist Justin Vining. We hope that you will enjoy this, and when you gaze upon it from time to time, that you will recall your fond memories of your time as downtown Indy's leader. So you probably can go ahead and even open it if you want. Yeah, I think we should, yeah. Sherry, thank you again for your service. Yeah, absolutely. All right. It is now my pleasure to introduce one of our city's most steadfast leader and founding member of the Downtown Indy Board. Representing our presenting sponsor, the chairman of J.P. Morgan Chase, Indiana, Mr. Al Smith. Al?
Good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is. Thank you, Bill. And it is my pleasure to represent about 2,500 employees of J.P. Morgan Chase throughout the state of Indiana in presenting this afternoon to you. I notice that this audience already knows this, but downtown is a very special place. And we've been through a lot for the past several years. But it's been very rewarding to see how the communities come together and weather the storm, if you will. We know that we're stronger together, and now it's the time to band together and to make more downtown inclusive, more diverse, and a fun place to work, play, and live. Now, J.P. Morgan is back. And in fact, you could say that we never really went away, or we closed. All of our banking centers remained open during the pandemic. And now the Salesforce Tower is beginning to fill up as we adjust to a new way of life called hybrid. J.P. Morgan is very, very committed to downtown. We've been here for about 180 years, and we're not going anyplace. This is our headquarters for the state of Indiana. It's my pleasure now to introduce somebody that really needs no introduction, but let's give him a round of applause for his steadfast support for the downtown of Indianapolis, Mayor Joe Hogsett.
You're very kind. Well, thank you, Al. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm glad to be at the Hilbert Circle Theater. I'd be remiss if I didn't begin my brief remarks today by adding my acknowledgement, recognition to Sherry for her tenure and dedication to downtown Indy. And we wish her well. We'll miss her, but I know there are good things in store. And she has been a stalwart and steward during perhaps two of the most difficult years, if not the most difficult years in our city's history. The truth is that over the last 2 years, Downtown Indy Inc., stakeholders and city partners in the Mile Square have remained, as Al mentioned, as Bill mentioned as well, they have remained committed to a downtown Indianapolis for all. And I think Sherry mentioned the word resiliency. Resiliency is in our city's DNA. And over these past 2 to 3 years, we've not only met the great challenges head on, but we have continued to create momentum for a growing and a thriving downtown. And frankly, that can't necessarily be said for a lot of other urban areas in the country. In fact, I think it's the momentum that we have kept going in the downtown, in spite of the challenges, that will be primarily responsible for leading us back to an even better, greater, more prosperous downtown. It has, in fact, led to massive public and private investments. What other community that you can think of during the course of this pandemic, this global pandemic, that would have engaged in public and private investments, projects like Gamebridge Fieldhouse and the Bicentennial Unity Plaza, the first ever Indianapolis Cultural Trail expansion? Yeah. That's during the middle of a pandemic. And the Cultural Trail is so beautiful. It's also reasonably expensive. And now the 6th Convention Center expansion with the addition of a convention signature hotel known as Signia. That's all happened in the last 2 to 3 years. These investments will enhance our downtown, and they will help us continue to do what we do as well as any other community in our country. Host world-class events while serving as a cultural hub for Indy's residents to work, play, and live. Just this week, 30,000 firefighters from all over the world. Where are they? They're in downtown. And of course, we all celebrate the 1-year anniversary of downtown Indianapolis hosting the entirety of March Madness, the NCAA Division I men's basketball tournament. And who can forget the excitement in Lucas Oil Stadium at this year's National Collegiate Football Championship game? Not to mention the return for our downtown of those great conventions that make us a destination convention city, like Gen Con. I can't tell you personally what goes on at Gen Con, but I know it's good. And I tell people, when you're here, spend lots of money. Our vision for downtown is to strengthen the urban core with more housing, particularly affordable housing, recreational public spaces, more economic development, and better connected infrastructure. But importantly, we want residents to feel closer to the development of downtown. That's why we are bringing them to the planning table for the South Downtown Connectivity Vision Plan in partnership with Gang Gang. Yeah, give it up for Gang Gang. It's why we are tripling our investment in more public spaces, making programming at Monument Circle, programming at the Canal, Lugar Plaza, and Georgia Street even more dynamic than that it has been before, and certainly with a consistency that over the last few years has been lacking. It's why we are ambitiously planning for the redevelopment of over 17 acres of city-owned sites, like City Market East, Jail 2, the Arrestee Processing Center, and other underutilized public facilities. It's why we are partnering on transformative investments in new economic centers, like Elevator Hill, 16 Tech, the expansion of Bottle Works, the announcement of the location of Elanco's global headquarters, developments that are bringing jobs and residential housing to our city. Those are all big projects that carry with them big ideas and great momentum. Later, you'll hear from Scarlett Andrews, who currently serves as director of the Department for Metropolitan Development, in more detail. Scarlett will outline those projects. But suffice it to say, the culture and energy is alive in downtown, and our future is bright. Given all that we have been able to do together during these daunting 2 years in our downtown's history, I am overwhelmingly optimistic about our future. And I certainly look forward to the role that Downtown Indy, Inc. has played and will play in the development of that future. Mark my words, the best is yet to come. I thank you.
Mayor, thank you very much. That is exactly the words that we want to use time and time again. We thank you for being here. We thank so many of your staff, our friends, being here from City Hall, and the important work that you all do every day for our city, especially our downtown, as we thank you today. Clearly, these past 2 years have had a drastic impact on downtown, as you said, Mayor. But we've also witnessed, as you cited, resiliency, also adaptability, pivoting, and recovery. And so have many downtowns across the nation. So to lead us in a discussion on national trends is a man that is sought after across the country in urban planning and design. David Dixon is a well-known creative who uses his platform to share about mixed-use urban districts and the planning, revitalization, and redevelopment of downtowns. His current and recent work focuses on cities large and small, Tampa, districts of Boston, Charleston, areas of Columbus, Ohio, and all throughout, and including Canada. David's impact hasn't gone unnoticed. He's won dozens of awards in the likes of American Institute of Architects, American Planning Association, Congress of the New Urbanism, I'd like to learn about that, and the International Downtown Association as well. A fellow, the American Institute of Architects, David was honored with their highest medal. He is Vice President of Stantec, a top-tier global design and delivery firm recognized for its creativity, technology, and collaborative approach. Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Mr. David Dixon.
So first of all, thank you, Bob, very much. And you'll notice I elbowed him because I promise it's just a cold. Anyway, I also want to say you don't have to listen to me because the mayor just gave my talk, which is that the best is yet to come. But I'm going to think of me as the urban nerd who's going to fill in the data behind the mayor's comments. And I want to say that all downtowns across not just North America, across the developed world have been under a period of just extreme stress for the last 2 years. You know it well, you all live it. And it is hard for many cities. You're an optimistic group, I have to say. I go to a lot of cities. This is the most optimistic group I've come across, so it's making me feel a little less necessary. But that said, this is actually a time for profound optimism about downtown. In fact, downtowns have an unprecedented era of opportunity ahead of them if they plan for it, and frankly, if they have organizations, and this is, I promise I wasn't prompted to say this, like Downtown Indy Inc., who can manage change, make sure it is fair and shared, and really bring partners together. So I'm going to try and focus, I'm going to focus on three things. Overview, what this new era of opportunity is about. Then set the stage and put some sort of numbers behind this to hopefully give you the confidence of my convictions. And then just a few thoughts about how to plan. And this discussion is going on in cities across the US. The International Downtown Association, groups like Downtown Indy Inc. are leading them. And it's the pandemic, obviously, is the source of this concern. The pandemic, however, has not changed the nature of downtown opportunity. It more accelerated the need to recognize where new opportunity will come from and the pace of change. So the pandemic has not changed many things. For example, you probably all remember a point in time when newspapers were writing articles about flights from downtown. The New York Times then wrote an article about the exodus that never happened, which I appreciated. But in fact, downtown rents, followed by city rents, have been rising faster than suburban rents for most of the last 2 years, just as they had for the 10 years before that. What has changed is our office market, and you heard a little bit about the word hybrid earlier. But this is not a trend. The pandemic didn't launch hybrid work. It accelerated a trend and cast a harsh light on it. In fact, what that chart is trying to say is that for the last 20 years, absorption of downtown office space has been slowing. At the same time, office space was viewed as downtown's purpose, and office space was viewed as the engine for downtown opportunity. So in fact, the game was getting harder and harder because the star player was beginning to, hybrid work was beginning to diminish demand for office space long before pandemic. But boy, has that accelerated this trend. I find this survey fascinating by PwC. If you ask workers, how many of you want to return to the office? About half say, maybe 3 days a week. Yes, management's 68% say we want our staff here 3 days a week. Both of these numbers are a disaster if you're thinking about investing in a new Class A office building. So it's very hard to foresee investment in Class A office space for quite some time. And remember, in many people's eyes, this was the engine for growth, hence a lot of anxiety. In fact, there is a new game in town called beer. It's not quite that. But it is amenity. It is the attraction of bright young folks. You've heard the word talent a number of times before I came up here. It is the ability that downtowns have, the unique ability to attract the kind of talent, educated workforce that in turn attracts jobs and investment in our innovation economy. This is no little feat. Our innovation economy is the fastest growing part of our economy, and I'm going to come back to this in a couple of minutes. If you can't attract the innovation economy, you're going to have a very hard time growing your cities and your region's economy, and downtown is center stage for doing that job. Just as for a long time we wanted to get every great law firm downtown, now it is innovation investment. It is coming into downtowns as conventional office vacancies rise. Billions of dollars of innovation investment are coming into downtowns, including in Indianapolis. And there is a particular reason for this. So I mentioned talent. I'm going to come back to the numbers in a minute, but every country in the developed world faces a shortage of talent going forward. The US GDP would be 3 to 5% higher if this country had enough talent. Innovation companies, innovation industries follow that talent, and that talent wants to live, work, play, learn, innovate. I can go on and on here. Enjoy each other in walkable, mixed-use, lively places, and then think, where do you find this better than in downtown? Downtowns where lots of folks are living. But there's a second piece to this. Brookings Institution recently released some data that said that conversations between two folks who work for innovation companies who work for different companies are worth far more in terms of the ideas they generate and the value those ideas generate than a conversation between two people who work for the same company. It is these unplanned conversations, which are called creative collisions, that really mark and fuel innovation productivity. And now try and have an unplanned Zoom call. So, at the same time, why is this talk about innovation and housing twinned together? Because, and I'll come back to this in a couple minutes, but just take for my word for it, cities have an unprecedented, face an era of unprecedented demand for urban downtown housing. Housing is 2/3 of our real estate economy. Housing is not maybe a goal in its own right. It is a tool for accomplishing what you want as a community. And boy, if you want lively streets full of fun and places for folks to run into each other, full of amenity and vitality, et cetera, it is housing that produces that. Folks who live downtown spend 3 to 5 times as much per capita on nearby retail, think largely restaurants and beer, than those who work downtown, actually. So as we lose office workers, believe me, the residents we're going to gain are worth far more to creating the kind of vitality that then attracts folks who want to live and work in, and stress work here in downtown, and particularly innovate. So downtown, in many ways, as our innovation economy is maturing, not maturing, that would evolving. The innovation industry never wants to mature, is evolving. One of the things that I've learned from the R&D and HR directors is they don't expect their workforce back in the office any more than a law firm or a graphic design firm or anybody who's traditionally been downtown. Therefore, why does place matter to them? Why would downtown matter? Because if that workforce isn't in the office, they want them living, working, playing, that means run into each other, within 5 minutes of each other. And you hear a lot about 15-minute cities these days. Think 5-minute cities. That's how much most people walk. They want places full of interaction where their workforce lives, comes into the office occasionally, but their real work is what they're learning from each other because they're part of a community of innovation. So communities of innovation have replaced, in some ways, the corporate office of innovation, and think where more naturally than downtowns. And let me tell you, I'm working in a number of tech parks that are all trying to become downtowns if they want to have a future in terms of attracting innovation, employment, and investment. So, making the same point, Wall Street Journal. So what are the fundamental trends that are supporting this? First of all, 90+% of net new jobs for the next 20 years, when the mayor said the best is yet to come, there's 20 years of it, are basically going to require some degree of higher education. This is just as our workforce growth is really slowing. Fundamental shortage of knowledge workers, talent as a result. The UN recently estimated that the developed world has roughly well, it's 11% now, it's going closer to 20% shortage of talent. So this is global competition. Remember where these folks want to go, and therefore why lively downtowns are so important for cities and regions to compete for these folks. But I also want to note that this is not as elitist as I'm making it sound, because, for example, the city of Buffalo estimates that every knowledge job, every innovation job they gain helps create 5 other jobs. These jobs carry high multipliers, often jobs that are being lost, and increasingly helping folks start new businesses to serve this market. So this is the way now the important thing is to then make sure you've got great folks like Downtown Indy Inc. who are helping, making sure this opportunity is shared. But this is shared opportunity I'm talking about. US, 40% of companies with more than 10 employees can't find the talent they need. So at the same time, 80+% of net new households, this is our growth in households, this is our housing market, will be singles and couples without kids. A lot of them could be old folks like me, but we still count, we still shop. Okay. This is the most urban, the most downtown supportive housing market we've had since World War II. If I had more confidence, I'd say in our history, but I'm going to stick to World War II. This is the building block that can allow us to build the kind of opportunity and inclusive opportunity for which downtowns need to be our city and regional engines. And I hope this is making folks. Raise your hand if you don't agree with me or something, so if you have a question. So 60+% of housing in this country is single-family detached suburban. Most new demand is going to be for multifamily, mixed-use, walkable, think downtown urban. There is a fundamental shortage of housing, and believe me, the pandemic did nothing to slow this trend, which is why downtown markets have recovered so fast and faster than suburban markets. Two other trends I want to touch on very quickly. Some of you have probably heard of autonomous mobility. We are entering also 2 decades of remarkable changes in mobility. Let me just say, to get to this point quickly, that within 20, 25 years, we won't be driving our own cars. We'll be in the era of autonomous mobility. Well, a lot of us think that means getting in a Tesla and driving 50 miles playing computer games. Most of us actually don't want to end up 50 miles from downtown. We want to be downtown. The future will really be about shared autonomous mobility, which will cut our mobility costs by about 50% and will become a subsidy for folks who live in lively mixed-use downtowns where there's a critical mass of destinations and people that will really support shared mobility. And then, as we move into an era of increasing concern about climate change and a sense of environmental responsibility, the carbon footprint, the emissions footprint of somebody who lives downtown or close to an urban neighborhood can be a 1/5 or even a 10th of the same footprint for somebody who lives out in the suburbs. So this is what environmental responsibility is about. So I want to finish with 4 things to think about. Wake up every morning and worry about these. So first of all, are we creating walkability, places that bring people together? This starts with density, with a critical mass, that 1,000 units within a 5-minute walk or its equivalent, that really brings streets to life. So when you're thinking about subsidies, incentives, public policy, are we placing housing where it will make a difference and bring our streets to life? 2, connectivity. That means, is it really easy to get downtown? And are we equitable about how folks get downtown? It costs $10,000 a year to own and operate a car. If you live anywhere near the poverty level, how many cars can you support? And suppose 2 of you work, or 1 of you wants to go to school, another wants to work. We've got to be able to get everyone downtown easily and inexpensively. Public realm that speaks to the full realm of our lives, places where thousands can get together, places like this, the wonderful monument and the circle out here, to very quiet and personal places where a couple folks 2 kids can play, but also, and this for crossover authenticity, public places that tell all of our stories. If you see a picture of yourself, not me, on a public place, then you can say, this is mine. This is about me. And downtown really has to be everyone's mine. But authenticity is what I want to conclude on with 1 minute to go. Thank you. Which is, be your natural selves. Don't try and look like historic Indianapolis, but make sure that the living culture of Indianapolis is alive in downtown every day, and the full spectrum of the cultures that you represent. One thing I found fascinating is that Downtown Indy Inc. has put great big projectors on top of buildings outside to basically bring building facades to life at night, et cetera. One great thing about they're using projectors is each week a new artist, and 20 years from now, new artists can program that so that can always be about who is Indianapolis today and what are you thinking about, what's important to you, as opposed to a static piece of art. And then finally, just to make sure that, and this is coming back to a familiar theme, that downtown is everyone's. Downtowns can more easily than at any point in our history, become islands of privilege, given what's happening to our economy and our demographics. But at the same time, we're going to have the resources to create the most, and I don't mean this politically, democratic downtowns, places of real shared opportunity, mixed income downtowns that we've ever had if we manage this change well. So thank you so much for your attention. And okay. And my email address was up there. So if you disagree, you can send me an email. Okay, thank you.
David Dixon, everybody, thank you very much. A lot of good information to store in your fanny packs there, everybody. And let us reflect on this with some local input. Please welcome a downtown representative panel that will be moderated by our very own board member who's been a part of our board for the last decade, Krista Skidmore, leader of the Downtown Strategic Plan, Velocity, CEO and founder of Flashpoint Leadership, Krista Skidmore. Please welcome Krista. Joining her is the director of the city's Department of Metropolitan Development. We're so glad she's here, Scarlett Andrews. Scarlett, thank you. The co-owner of High Alpha over on Mass Ave, please welcome Mr. Christian Anderson. And the co-owner of Gang Gang, Mr. Alan Bacon. Alan, good to have you here. Krista, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Great, thank you. Thank you all for being here. And thanks for our panel. Exciting I know my wheels are turning. How about yours? David, you got us going off well here. Lots to think about at the macro level, but now we want to turn our attention to focus a bit more on Indianapolis solely. And as I think about the three of you, I've known you all for a long time. Some of you longer than I'd like to admit, maybe, since Christian and I are undergrad buddies, so we won't talk about that. But I'm really proud of the way that each of you have made your mark here in Indianapolis, and we're going to hear a little bit more from each of you today. And really focus on some of these very transformational projects, right, that are going on in the city, and really will reinforce, I think, a lot of what David has brought to us. So, Alan, if you don't mind, would you like to get us started off and tell us a little bit more about what the team at Gang Gang has been up to? And I'll also introduce, as you get ready, Alex Dora, who's a multi-instrumentalist who will be playing saxophone and accompanying Alan from Huckleberry Funk. Thanks, Alan.
America the Beautiful. 2020 brought America to its knees. For everyone alive, 2020 was either a moment of awakening or it was a moment of reckoning. And if everything 2020 was about what separates people, from the health pandemic to the race pandemic, it's culture that will bring us together. Culture is the connective tissue for humanity. We connect through food and music and visual art and design and architecture and storytelling, the humanities. Think about it. What are some of your favorite places to visit in the country? Nashville, Miami, LA, New Orleans, New York? Now think about why you like to visit those cities. A lot of times, even most times, it's because of culture. It's because of food and fashion and theater and the live music and Alex. And culture is what gives you identity as a person and as a place. So what would it look like if Indianapolis leaned into culture? What would it look like if Indianapolis leaned further in and deeper into our identity as a city? One way that downtown Indy leaned into culture is with the In the Mix program, sponsored by JP Morgan Chase, in partnership with Gang Gang, Black Onyx, Kite Realty, Black Indie Chamber, and the Indianapolis Chamber of Commerce. In the Mix is a strategy to recruit and invest in Black-led creative businesses to establish or expand retail operations in downtown Indianapolis. This strategy gives these creative entrepreneurs full-on support toward the growth and sustainability of their business in downtown. And this strategy gives Indianapolis more culture in the core of our downtown, more foot traffic, more residents, more restaurants, more experiences, more of who we are as a city. So why culture? Why creatives? Why was that our focus? Indy is rich in culture. Our creative talent is on par with each of those cities that I just mentioned. Our creative class, our culture, is Indianapolis's secret sauce. Culture goes well with everything, just like butter. There's no shame on the stage. There's really not. Culture goes well with everything. It goes well with sports. Culture goes well with tourism. Culture is a solution and a tool for talent attraction and retention. Culture does wonders for beautification and placemaking. Culture is the essence of leisure activity. Our understanding of and the application and activation of culture is key to our downtown resurgence. Culture drives the creative economy. The creative economy is home to many Black and brown entrepreneurs. So when you invest in culture, when you invest in the creative economy, you're not only investing in your city, but you're investing in the people that make your city. You're investing in culture. And that formula is a clear path towards equity. Now, there's probably a business or organization, someone that could address some of this. And I think it probably rhymes with gang gang. A city is in a dangerous place when its creatives stop dreaming. I feel like Miles Davis up here. And it's cool to see our creatives dreaming again. It's cool to see these creative entrepreneurs excited about retail space downtown. It's cool to see our downtown active with art and culture. Our creatives aren't leaving for other cities in droves anymore. They're not leaving, they're leading right here in Indianapolis. And the creators that left, they're coming back. And there's a buzz about Indianapolis, and it's not quiet. There's a buzz about our downtown, and it's getting louder. There's a creative renaissance happening, and it's happening right here in Indianapolis. And we're on the forefront of a movement. We're not on the outskirts of this movement. We're not bystanders. We are truly in the mix. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alex Dura, our saxophone accompanist. Awesome. So creative. I would expect nothing less from you. Although, had I known accompaniment was an option, I would have secured the famous Michael Huber from chamber music to accompany me. You know, now I know. I'm coming for him. But in all seriousness, really appreciate those thoughts, provoking, thank you. And we're gonna break that down a little bit more in a few minutes. So now I'm gonna turn things over to my fellow Downtown Indy board member, Christian, and I know you've got a few words to say, so take it away.
But I got a deck. Real square business guy thing to do. Let's see if this works. Here we go. All right. I kind of refactored what I was going to say while I was sitting listening to everybody's comments. So this will be more of a stream of consciousness thing, but I think it's certainly in line with what Alan was talking about, which is fundamentally, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the demand side. Alan talked about the supply side of culture. So, like, why does culture matter? Because talent wants to be, as Paul Graham said, rich people are easy to figure out. They like mountains or oceans, big airports, opera, but nerds are a lot easier to figure out. Nerds just want to be around other nerds, right? And so you think about how do you attract talent? Well, you kind of need talent to attract talent. And whether it's cultural talent, explicitly focused on what we think of culture in the arts, business talent, educational talent, civic talent, etc. You got to start with a kernel, and it can appear accidentally, but usually when it works in a big way, there's some intentionality behind it. So that's kind of what I want to chat about. So real quick, High Alpha, we're a venture studio. We start and scale software companies. We've been doing it for 7 years. We've launched 30 companies and have brought really a tremendous amount of capital, but maybe more importantly, talent to the city. And it's very intentional. When we started High Alpha, we said we wanted to think of ourselves as a for-profit economic development entity. And that's no slight toward the nonprofit economic development organizations. It's just that capitalism, when properly harnessed and adjudicated, can be a remarkable tool for growing communities. At the heart of that is people, as you might imagine, and it's something that, quite frankly, we've contended with, prosecuted, struggled with, knowing we were going to do all those things, since we started the organization. But we have a deep affection for the city of Indianapolis. None of us are from here. None of the folks that started High Alpha are even from here. Many of you have heard me say this before. I'm so in love with this city that I named my only son Indy. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is, at least in terms of naming. So dog parks, pedestrian corridors, David, beer gardens, which I heard you say many times, we'll have to grab a drink after this, are certainly important. But I think as was noted in an earlier session, talent no longer follows businesses, business follows talent. So you have to be in a place where the talent wants to be before the actual economic development follows it. It is the core. It is the irreducible component of innovation. It's the raw input of innovation. So when we have a very kind of indie-centric view on talent, and I thank Bob and Sherry and Krista for inviting me. I'm gonna tell a very myopic story just about how we're thinking about talent at High Alpha in the context of the city of Indianapolis, and it is a very indie-centric story. We recently, I'm an old man now, so 3 years is recently moved into the Bottle Works district. And when we did that, we did it with an eye toward how could we build a remarkable magnet for talent, both in the city of Indianapolis, but equally important for talent outside of the city of Indianapolis. I read a piece recently, David may have written it for all I know, talking about how to measure the innovation index of a city, and one of the leading kind of hallmarks or correlations they discovered was the number of external network connections, meaning network connections outside of the city where the individual lived. So if you look at a city like Indy, what you'll find is as many network connections as somebody who lives in San Francisco, but they tend to be clustered within the region. And if you look at Singapore or San Francisco, you'll notice that those network connections, those other nodes, tend to be far afield. And this gets a little bit to, again, I'll invoke David again when he was talking about the real catalytic sparks happen when people from different companies are connecting. Well, the same thing happens when you think about people from different cities connecting. And so something we felt really strong about from day one was how do we get as many people who don't live in Indy to Indy? And every phone call, every conference call, every Zoom call I have with somebody for the first time that lives somewhere else, I invite them to Indianapolis. I say, we will put you up, we will build an agenda, we will make sure you have an amazing time, but I never get off a phone call with somebody that doesn't live in Indy without inviting them to Indy and giving them and saying, let's look at your calendar, or reach out with some dates. Like I drive really, really hard at that. Over the last 7 years, we've hosted a summit for all of our CEOs who are located, many of them in Indy, but many of them around the world, in Europe and Canada and all over points in between in America. And we had historically always picked a destination to go do that. So some place that we thought was intriguing enough that people would get on a transatlantic flight to do it. So Jackson Hole or Big Sky or Park City, something that, you know, they could, if they got bored, they could go skiing or tour a winery or what have you. And when the pandemic hit, we said it gave us a great opportunity to reset, and we kind of changed our approach here. We were like, listen, we're so focused on bringing people from outside our network to Indy so they can hopefully fall in love with Indy the way we have. We said, every event we do, let's just do it in Indy. Let's run that good old-fashioned exact target playbook of not hosting connections in Vegas, but hosting it in Indy. And this is a really cool example. This is a couple of photos from our XO Summit where we had CEOs from some very small and some very large companies in our portfolio from around the world come to Indy, and it was pure showcase. You know, we curated every aspect of their visit, even from the route that the driving service took from the airport to our office, right? Like being extraordinarily intentional about crafting that. It is a very small thing, especially when you're just talking about 70 CEOs, but this is kind of how you break big rocks into little rocks, like changing people's perceptions and attitudes about a city, you know, one person at a time. And entrepreneurship, I think, is a pretty remarkable vehicle to do that. You know, of the 1,000 or so jobs that we've created at High Alpha Studio companies, the vast majority of them are based in Indy, and a remarkable number of them are people who did not live in Indianapolis before we started the company. So actively recruiting people from other parts of the country, and I'm not talking about necessarily Biloxi, Mississippi. So is anyone here from Biloxi? Good, all right. So I'm an Arkansan, so I always like to get a little Mississippi jab in there, but didn't land. No, these are people moving from the Bay Area, from New York, from Boston, and in cities like that. And it's just incremental. Atomic unit means it comes down to the single individual carbon-based life form that you can invite alongside you onto this journey of entrepreneurship and doing it in our city. When we start companies, we ask them to be domiciled downtown. We actually built out a facility to house those companies. And our thought is, if we can get them to live with us in our house downtown for a year, the likelihood that they move into another house downtown, I'm using house metaphorically here, I believe is extraordinarily high. Maybe the last thing I'll mention about that I think is pretty cool is the number of our employees that have moved into proximity to the office is really remarkable as well. And this goes back to that, where our office is. We're in a place that's walkable, livable, has the cultural amenities, has the dining options, is activated in some ways. So if any of you own apartment complexes near Mass Ave, a 10% finder's fee will be fine, but I'll send you the names of those who've made the move. And then I'll probably just land on this, which is we think of High Alpha as an incubator for sure, but we think of it as one very, very small piece of a broader strategy of turning Indianapolis into an incubator, one that not only attracts talent, but kind of unlocks all of the platform services that entrepreneurs need to launch and grow and scale their companies. And if I was going to leave this group with like a challenge, it would be, what's one thing one might integrate into their daily cadence when interacting with people who don't live or work downtown, to get them to consider it. And it can be as simple as, hey, any chance you could swing by Indy in the next month? I'd love to sit down and break bread. I'll put you up in a hotel, etc. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture, but it's something that we've kind of tried to hardwire into our team as we think about recruiting. And it's something that I think can move the needle. So thanks.
Thank you. Amazing. Well, thanks for being such a great downtown champion. I don't think anyone else can claim they've named their child after this city, so I think you win there. Really impressive. Scarlett, I know the mayor's previewed. You're going to tell us about a number of really impressive projects underway, so take it away.
There we go. Awesome. Well, I think I'm the most bureaucratic here, but that's probably my role here, to talk about what the city's doing and how we're thinking about downtown. And I have to say, in hearing David speak, I am quite optimistic about the direction we're heading, and I think we might be right about some things. So earlier this year, Mayor Hogsett launched the Downtown Resiliency Strategy. And we're focused on 4 pillars: housing, public space, infrastructure, and economic development. One, we know right now that downtown occupancy rates are over 90%. In fact, I think I saw a stat today that it's 97% occupied in terms of housing downtown. That means we know that people want to live here, which is awesome. But we've got to accelerate development of a dense residential base. And I believe that that's going to help us support the kind of creative economy and the kind of retail economy that we also want to see downtown. In our public spaces, Downtown Indy and the Cultural Trail are the city's partners in activating spaces like the Canal, Monument Circle, Lugar Plaza, and Georgia Street. And we do that so incredibly on large events. So the mayor talked about March Madness, hosting the entirety of March Madness last year. We host all kinds of large sporting events and world-class conventions. And we activate those spaces with music and art and other activities during those times so well. But what happens when you want to go to Georgia Street for lunch on a Wednesday? I want to make sure that anybody who's living and working downtown sees those spaces as places where things are going on all the time, and they can see themselves there. Anybody can be there. And infrastructure. So David talked about connectivity and walkability. This is a key part of our South Downtown Connectivity Vision Plan that I'll talk about more in a moment. But we're focused on the pedestrian experience downtown. What does it feel like to walk from Mass Ave, down Alabama Street, over to Lugar Plaza, down to the new Bicentennial Unity Plaza by Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and over to Georgia Street in the future? Are there things to do along the way? What would it be like to connect our residents part of the city to our visitors part of the city on a day-to-day basis? And then economic development. Downtown continues to be the center of jobs for Indianapolis and the state, but we've got to be proactive about that. And we know that people are going to be working in offices, at least part-time in the future, but they want a different type of experience out of that. And so what does it look like, as David said, to build innovation districts in our downtown? Things like 16 Tech Innovation District, the way that the Elanco headquarters is thinking about their headquarters as an innovation district, the White River Innovation District. The expansion of Bottle Works, which I've heard is very successful. They pivoted to entirely office in the second phase. And so you think about building entirely office during a pandemic, that is why. And so last week, oh, I went backwards. Okay. Actually, I'll start with this one. So we know that a lot of momentum is happening downtown. We know that major investment is happening in Gainbridge Fieldhouse, in the Bicentennial Unity Plaza, in the expansion of the Convention Center, in the 16 Tech District in Elanco, which I just mentioned, in Bottle Works, in major projects such as Elevator Hill, which is the redevelopment of the Angie's List campus. And so how do we leverage this momentum? Last week, we launched the campaign #DowntownIndy with Gang Gang. Our interest is how do we get people to talk about downtown, get them excited about downtown, and feel like downtown is their place to be. So we're directing people to every social media platform saying, what do you want to see downtown? Everybody should have a say in its future. Use the hashtag DowntownIndy. These large banners, these very colorful and creative forward banners, are on some of our key locations downtown, including on the Circle, on the Anthem Building, and at City Market, and at Georgia Street. And then we're partnering with partners like Indigo and the airport to have advertisements there too, trying to direct people online to talk about downtown. And that's generating some excitement for what I mentioned, our South Downtown Connectivity Vision Plan. And when I talk about this, the geography that I'm really focusing on is centered on some of those key projects that I talked about and the expansion of the cultural trail and major infrastructure projects. So we're talking about the Circle and then south half of the Mile Square. Again, those projects that I mentioned, that Gamebridge Fieldhouse project, the Bicentennial Unity Plaza, the Convention Center expansion, and the cultural trail expansion, all located within this geography. But how can we leverage those for better connectivity, activated public spaces, and more walkability? And then we're focused on Market East. Market East is the home, as the mayor said, of over 17 acres of untapped public facilities. With the move to the Community Justice Campus, we've got key sites now that are available for redevelopment. And those include the Jail 1, Jail 2, the Arrestee Processing Center, potentially the County Building, Old City Hall, and the City Market site, and the heliport. And so 2 of those sites that we're focused on right now, the Department of Metropolitan Development put out requests for proposals for 2 major sites this year. And so I want to talk just a little bit about those and then bring it back. So the City Market site, many of you may know that the city is partnering with the City Market to do a strategic planning of the market itself. And so we're excited to see how the market is going to transform over the next few years. And the Department of Public Works put in over $8 million into Market Street improvements in the past year. So if you haven't been over to that piece of Market Street, please go visit, because you can start to imagine what it could be to redo Market Street all the way from the Capitol through the Circle over to the market and really make it an anchoring corridor. And then, as I said, the Department of Metropolitan Development is seeking redevelopment of the City Market East site. We believe that this site is key for housing. It could be retail. We can bring people to the market, people of all ages, and activate that site in a way that hasn't been before. And then finally, if you're not familiar with this site, the Jail 2 and Arrestee Processing Center, as we know them, were not known as that for many, many years. So they started as the Cole Noble Car Factory and served a number of manufacturing uses over the years. But then the city acquired them in the late 90s and they became public facilities. They are now entirely empty and ready for redevelopment. And so again, we're seeking housing. It could be office, mixed use, entertainment, even educational uses at this site. And so we're excited to see what the development community can bring. So we're bringing you to the planning table. And I hope that you are the downtown stakeholders. So I hope that you all can get excited about these kinds of projects and all that's to come and the momentum that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Scarlett. Arguably, over the next 5 years, a pretty impressive run of development and perhaps most transformative single window of time in our history. Can you see why we're optimistic, Mr. Dixon? Yes. All right, we're going to do now a couple of questions. We'll monitor time here as we go through. But we're going to start with just building off that macro level, right, with David's presentation. And I'm just curious, bring this down to us, right? And Scarlett, we'll start with you. What do you think is most doable, or, because I heard you say, gosh, we already are, kind of on the right track here in how we're thinking about downtown. But what's most doable in terms of time, resources, and so on?
I think housing development is one of the key components of this. I think David mentioned the stat of 1,000 housing units to activate a block. We've brought folks to the table, planners to the table, to talk about this recently too. And when you think about key areas of our city like Mass Ave, that was a housing strategy. And so that brought the kind of businesses that you now see on Mass Ave.
Absolutely, yeah. Christian, you want to weigh in as well?
I have no idea. I mean, I would say I don't really like to question what's the most doable, because I don't think filtering those options based on what's the most doable is probably the right way. We probably should pick the ones the least doable, the most ambitious. How many people a day are moving to Indianapolis? Do you know? You know what that number is? Like, I know we like to pick on Austin here, but 150 people a day are moving to Austin. And the question is, like, why? Is it because they have enough housing? No, it's the opposite. They don't have enough housing. They're having, in some cases, having to live an hour outside of the city. So with respect to David, I thought those were all fine suggestions. They also all came across as like Charlie Brown's parents talking, like not highly differentiated. For me, and I know this wasn't the question, but like, what's the thing we can do that's different and ambitious that, as I like to say, if it doesn't work out, somebody's gonna get fired? And I think that's the conversation we should start with.
Love that. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna switch us to our next question, and Alan, I'll have you start us off here, especially thinking about the mission and focus of Gang and all the great work that's going on. I'm curious, we all know we have such a long way to go relative to this inclusive city and diversity and the shared experience of downtown. So what can we be doing, key insights to be more inclusive as we work on this journey?
That's a good question. I think that, I think the answer is culture. I think, we need to start to think more intently about what culture means and the advantages of embracing culture as a city and what that looks like. And I think that kind of gets to some of the bold and, audaciousness of, who we can be as it comes to this our evolution. But there's a dichotomy between this DEIA work and culture where I think that DEI, it's a strong focus on race and really it's about, what makes us different, where culture focuses on the connection and what allows us to continue to grow together as humans. So I think, as we learn about what divides us, we need to continue to do what brings us together. And I think that's the balance that we need to strive for as a city to get us to the next evolution as it relates to DEI and being inclusive and equity.
Love the ties that bind, right? Thank you. Scarlett, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think our public spaces are a huge opportunity for more dynamicism and bringing culture to the table. I think we underutilize our public spaces as a place for all.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna get maybe in trouble, but lightning round. 3 words that are describing for each of you our downtown today, what your experience is. Let's do a real quick lightning round. Alan.
Since I'm first, I'll do one word. Hopeful would be.
Great, thanks. Christian.
I'm sticking with all 3. Under-resourced, underutilized, and underrated. And I used hyphens, so those are just one word.
Okay, so it's not 6. Okay, Scarlett.
We're back. We've got momentum, and we're resilient.
She went with phrases, I'll allow it. And then I'm gonna add mine, which are unique. I love the diversity of our downtown, transforming and energizing. In other words, my community, my home, my downtown. Thanks all.
Thank you all very much. Incredible messages, and you're welcome to step down. You're welcome to stay there too. So whatever's most comfortable for you. But yeah. Thank you very much. Let's hear from our panel, or for our panel once again. Krista, thank you. Thank you. Scarlett, Alan, thank you. We've discussed the strength of downtown comes from inspired leadership, both past and present. And to share a final recognition and a feel-good moment, I'd like to ask for one more time to bring our president up here, who would like to make a special presentation to conclude our day. Sherry?
I get the best for last, and this is one of my happy moments, my last gesture as president of Downtown Indy. So every year we have a Downtown Champion Award, and it's kind of an inspiration award by a leader that has just been a champion really for downtown. And it was established in 2013 as the highest honor bestowed by Downtown Indy Inc. And it honors individuals for leading or creating that which have a lasting impact on downtown residents, workers, and visitors. The award recipient shall be someone who has championed significant change for downtown, somebody who has helped positively change the local, regional, and national reputation of downtown. And past recipients have included Tamara Zahn, my predecessor, Brian Payne, Mayor Bill Hudnut, Mel and Herb Simon, founding Downtown Indy board members Al Smith, Bob Reynolds, and Jerry Semler, and last year's recipient is still the civic icon, Jim Morris. This year's recipient falls squarely in the good company of those who have been awarded the honor before. Tom Mcgowan has served as the president and COO of Kite Realty Group Trust since 2008 and as chief operating officer since Kite Realty Group's initial public offering in 2004. Tom is one of the finest human beings I know. He never shies away from a problem, but rather he steps up with a solution. Our city could use at least 100 more Tom McGowans. And I want to roll a video before we ask him up.
Joan and I, his wonderful mother, and I drove Tom downtown. We drove a lot of nights, and we had him in a car seat, and because I was there all day long for years, and I loved it, and I just wanted him to grow up and love it also.
So Tom's passion for downtown is just deep-rooted. It's part of his life. It's a big part of his life. He cares about it. His father, Bill, was also very involved in downtown, and really we wouldn't have the meeting business that we have today. We wouldn't have the convention business we have today without Bill. So Tom grew up in it. He grew up in just living and breathing that every day and loving that every day.
Tom Mcgowan is a guy that everybody really knows, and that he knows everybody, and I mean everybody. You know, how many times have we walked by someone with a cup in their hand around the Circle or on Meridian Street or on Washington Boulevard, and we're busy and we're looking at our phones and we're heading to a meeting and we don't talk to them? Tom Mcgowan talks to them, and he hears their story, and he's as easy with those interactions as he is with a CEO of a major company, or with a mayor or a governor or a friend. That's Tom Mcgowan.
I met Tom on May 5th of 2021. Unfortunately, it was not the way I would have liked to have met Tom, but Tom came in the day my brother, on May 5th, took his own life, and I met this man, which I knew he had to be someone special, because he came in here and just comforted me like beyond that I can explain. And he has done everything to help me keep going. It's a special man in Tom, you know.
So I met Tom a couple years ago through the Downtown Recovery Committee, where I served as the social and economic co-chair with Al Smith. And through his leadership, I got to see really how he shines through a crisis. A pandemic brought us together, and we were able, through our committee, to not only address things around safety, business recovery, homelessness, but also he created space for us to talk about unmet needs. And one of those key areas was bringing Black businesses downtown. And what I appreciate about Tom is he gave me a space to not only have a seat at the table, but also a voice to talk about things differently. And that's what makes Tom so great.
When I think of Tom Mcgowan, I think of Mr. Downtown. As long as I've known Tom, which is decades now, he has been an incredible champion for downtown. You know, he's had his hands on so many of the developments, the iconic developments that make our downtown special. So Tom is he's just always been all about downtown Indianapolis, and he's been a champion, but he's also, as I said, he's been part of making it happen.
Tom is a quiet, gentle leader. Again, a man of integrity, but he's a tireless worker, and he's pragmatic and he's balanced. He's creative with his solutions, and he's tireless at the same time.
Always wanted us to be better. Always wanted us to be #1 in the Midwest, maybe #1 in the country. And I think that's his legacy. I think his legacy is he will never stop pushing.
Our best days are ahead of us, as they say, and I think it's in part because Tom has been one of those guys who's, not going to let us take a step backwards.
I think the people of this city mean something to him. The businesses of this city mean something to him. It's not about power, it's about heart, and that's what Tom is. He's full of heart.
Tom has a tremendous gift that he connects with different walks of life. He just feels really strongly that we all have to work together to make this city better.
Tom, congratulations on this award. I want to thank you for everything you have done for me and my family and for the city of Indianapolis. Congratulations.
What an incredible honor. Really embrace this recognition. You deserve it, and congratulations.
The city is, behind you 100%, wants to continue to push forward just like you do. And again, after you've received this award, can't imagine anybody else topping you, so they should retire it. Congratulations.
There is so much more for you to do. I know you're up to the task. I know you're committed. And I just want to thank you for that and wish you all the best.
There's no one I can think of that is more deserving than this award than Tom Mcgowan. Thanks, Tom, for all you do for all of us to keep our city vibrant.
Tom, congratulations on this fantastic award, which you richly deserve. We're so proud of you. We love you, and we look forward to many years of your making Indianapolis a better city for all of us. God bless you.
Please welcome my friend Tom Mcgowan to the stage.
Thank you very much. That was obviously far too kind, but it's greatly appreciated. I want to congratulate Sherry on a great run as the leader of this organization. It's not an easy job. Every day is a new day, and she's battled as best as anyone could. So Sherry, thank you so much for what you have done for this great city. Let's just keep making it happen. Thank you, everybody.
Tom, thank you very much for being here. Sherry, thank you for being with us here as our conclusion. Thank you all for joining us. I don't have my slide clicker, but I want just to remind you all, there's takeaways here. You have the program is through a great QR code right here on the front. If you want to follow about 19 pages of data, it is all right there. You can lean into that. We also encourage you to participate in our Handlebar Hot Lap. Just 3 weeks from tomorrow, on the circle, 10 people from your office, again, 10 people against another office, and we'll redefine that office as Zoom. Please get involved in the work that we're doing. Many of you are already. For those of you who aren't members, come see me, please. And we're going to have a good time. Thank you to IBEW. They're always ready to support us year-round. They're here today. We're going to look forward to the holidays soon enough. But before then, we have a whole summer to enjoy together. Thank you all. Sherry, thank you once again, and good night, everybody. The bar is open.